It's very interesting. Okay, so what do we got here? There's like a mini front within the front. I might be able to get a conversation with someone here.
For those listening on podcast, we're watching a video of mine from Friday where I attended.
Okay, I'm going to try something right now. I'm going to try to have a discussion and see if we identify what the disagreement is.
I went to a rally.
When engaging in a debate, one has to identify the debate questions. Let's go on.
I went to call it an anti-trans rally, but it's more about not indoctrinating children in schools, elementary schools.
But before I turn my camera around on you, would you mind talking to me?
I'm asking
a
counter-protester to talk to me.
I am a document. Well, I wouldn't say I support this now. But so why wouldn't you talk to someone who doesn't support it? If you talk to someone who does support it, I don't need to, because you're wrong. But then why be here if you're not going to talk to anybody about it?
I'm here for my son. Now, could you kindly fuck off?
Well, I'm going to not move, but don't worry, you're not on camera. You're not well. First of all, you're in a public spot, but you're not on camera. Don't worry about it. Very polite, not very polite.
Could you kindly F off?
Doesn't give permission to be on camera doesn't give permission to be on camera while protesting in public. There you have the logic, I think, that you might see more often than not on the other side. Kindly fuck off. I might have to put that on a shirt. Let's see who else we can get potentially to talk. Buzz off bigots.
Are you taking the piss out?
How's it going? Not bad.
Seconds.
I was just told to kindly fuck off. I've never heard such an oxymoron in my life. Yeah, at least you're told kindly, right?
Let's just appreciate what we witnessed there before we get into the lead story for today. I go to, it's called the Education, Not Indoctrination protest that was put on by Josh Alexander and Billboard Chris, I think, organized. I'm not sure exactly who organized it. And there were a bunch of counter-protesters there. Okay. Two of them talked to me. Only two. Everyone else either gave me the middle finger, told me to kindly F off, etc., etc. I went to a protester who looked like a reasonable human being, but I was quickly proven wrong. And I say, do you want to talk to me? And he says, well, do you support what I believe in? And so in more words than he said, do you support the trans movement? And I said, well, I'm here as a documentarian, but I guess, no, I don't. I don't think this should be taught in schools. And then he says, then no. To which I said, why would you not want to talk to someone who disagrees with you? And he says, I don't need to because you're wrong. If that's your logic, whomever you were, what would be the utility in talking to someone with whom you agree? There could be nothing more useless than talking to someone with whom you already agree. What are you going to get out of that? My goodness, we're right. Yes, we are, Tim. They're right, Jim. Yes, we're very right. Right. Then he proceeds to tell me that he's there for his son, and I would have had questions. All right, does your son identify as trans, putting it in quotes? What's going on in your son's life that you felt the need to come counter-protest here? How old is your son? Is your son in elementary school, primary, secondary? How do you feel about people teaching your son and other people's children this stuff in school? And most importantly, what is a son? Didn't get there. Because I was told to kindly F off, which is at least better than the middle finger I was getting from everybody else on the counter-protester side that I addressed. And then I was told I don't have his permission to record him. This is the level of legal, logical understanding of these counter-protesters. Factual understanding, linguistics. I'm out in a public street, counter-protesting at a public event with big signs and big billboards telling you, go home, bigots, Nazis, F off, etc., etc. But I don't give you permission to record me, as though that could make a lick of sense other than to illustrate the fundamental juvenile ideology that goes on, I'm saying it, on the side of the counter-protesters. Listen to what I have to say and shut up. Look at my signs, but don't look at me. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Stop staring. But that's not where we're going with this intro, people. That's not where we're going with this intro. That was just part one of it as a segue. But before we even do this, I'm just going to make sure that everything is working smoothly on Rumble. Good. We are live on locals.com on locals. Hold on, let me skip here. Good, we're there. We're live on Rumble. Let me make sure that we're live on locals at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Are we good here? Because my goodness, people, if you saw my vlog today, you're going to know what's going on We're live. Good. If any of you saw my vlog today, I couldn't get it up to locals first. Let me just get this camera down here. This is going to drive me crazy. I couldn't get to locals separately because internet apparently in Canada nicht geht. Go back to the old German or Yiddish. Let me just put this on here. So I couldn't get it to locals. I was having trouble uploading it to Rumble because the internet was so slow. The phone would go off, the computer would go dead, and then they'd have to restart the upload. So this might be repetitive for those of you who saw today's vlog. News for those of you who didn't. And my goodness, we're going to make it news. We're going to make it news, people. So I was at this protest. I live streamed for 3 hours and 31 minutes. Good or bad, we were going to see what happened in real time. And lo and behold, not much happened. There were some kerfuffles, nothing serious, a couple of arrests, by the way. But the arrests came from what they call the Antifa side, whatever. It came from the other side, the counter-protesters. There were 2 arrests, from what I understand. No one on the side of the education, not indoctrination protests were arrested. It went off without a hitch. There was some shoving. That's about it. No meaningful violence, at least I thought, until I came home and saw a tweet from someone who I didn't know, but now I definitely know who he is, a member of provincial parliament. So everybody understands you have your MPs, which are member of parliament in Canada. That's federal. And then you have your MPPs, MPPs, which are members of provincial parliament. I see a tweet from a member of provincial parliament, which is in response to this tweet, which you're now looking at if you're listening on podcast tomorrow. This is a tweet from Luc Lebrun, which means this is absolute madness. The far-right mob is not even at a school anymore. They're just standing in the middle of a residential street in Westboro, chanting nonsense in the direction of random homeowners to, quote, leave our kids alone. First things first, it was weird that the protest was on a residential street where they were. But that's only because they were directed or blocked from their stated itinerary by counter-protesters. They walked around the street to bypass the counter-protesters and then were flanked on both ends of a street that they were going down by the counter-protesters, which the police allowed to happen. And they were literally wedged onto this street. And yeah, the homeowners on that street were mighty pissed, especially when people were stepping all over their front lawns. So that they were on a residential street was bizarre. But it was only because of how the counter-protest was set up and what the police allowed to happen and then getting flanked in. Set that aside. This is the video of the far-right mob. Look at that. Look at that mob. Look at that mob. That was the mob, people. I don't know what qualifies as a mob, but that sure doesn't. But this individual, Luc Lebrun, calls this group of people a far-right mob. All right. If you've watched that video, you can determine whether or not that's a mob. It looks like a crowd protesting. In response to this tweet and that video of a far-right mob saying they're just sitting around the streets doing Lord knows what, Joel Hardin, Ontario NDP, the New Democrat Party of Ontario, a sitting member of provincial parliament, says that this mob, this far-right mob, is also punching people in the face. Punching people in the face, but I'll take a punch for queer and trans youth any day. And then he shows a picture of his punch. I'm going to zoom in on it for those who are looking. Like I said in my video today, people, I've never been punched in the face, but I've watched a lot of people punch a lot of people in the face. I've taken some Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Haven't done the striking. I know what a punch looks like on a face. That's a very, what we call a sharp cut, like an incision almost. And I said to Joel Hardin, who purported to have been punched in the face by the angry far-right mob, I said, I'm not calling you a liar, but I think you're a liar. Show the video evidence. Everybody there had a camera. Everybody there and their dog had a camera. And I went on something of a mission over the weekend to try to create a movement to determine the truth. I created something called #Justice for Joel Hardin. If he was punched in the face, and I'm not even being funny here, if he was punched in the face, whoever punched him in the face needs to be brought to justice, period. My bottom line problem, I didn't think he was punched in the face. And with the aggregate knowledge of the interwebs, I think we have definitively proven that he wasn't punched in the face because he updated, by the way, since my video today, updated press release. He wasn't punched in the face. Someone apparently punched him, glanced off the bullhorn, and the bullhorn hit him in the face. That's the update. But let's just get to the breakdown of a lie, shall we? The aggregate knowledge of the interwebs went scouring the internet, looking for justice for Joel. And my goodness, when I say the aggregate knowledge of the internet can solve anything pretty much, give them the 40,000 hours of January 6th, they'll find you the FBI informants. They'll find you the police brutality. They'll find you all of the agitators and provocateurs. They'll find it, which is exactly why the intelligence, putting that in quotes, doesn't want the aggregate knowledge of the internet and the 4chans of the world to have that information, to find the informants, to find the agent provocateur, to find the FBI agitators who might have been agitating January 6th. But lo and behold, when there's enough people live streaming in real time, enough people taking pictures, posting it to Twitter, the truth shall set you free, people. Hold on, I just got ahead of myself with this tweet. And Karima Rules is her Twitter handle. Let me see if I go to... okay, I'll do that. Karima Rules. I don't know how she did it. She has a better network on the interwebs. Found the evidence. This is Joel Hardin with the bullhorn, and it gets pushed into his face right there, people. It gets pushed into his face. Now look around 360, people. The bullhorn, boom, right there. Anyone has any lingering doubts about a bullhorn gate? Let me just go to my Twitter feed and just get the picture. The side-by-side comparison. No, you know what? It might have been on my... he lied. Joel Hardin, boldface, lied about what I suspect would have been an actual hate crime under Canadian law. I don't know of Joel's orientation, and I'm not presuming anything. I'm just saying that this is at a protest, and if someone assaulted a trans rights activist or a trans rights protester, or if I don't know what Joel's orientation is, if he's of the orientation that would make this a hate crime even clearer. Joel Hardin, sitting member of the Ontario New Democrat Party provincial parliament, lied on the internet about having gotten punched in the face, and the internet found the evidence. He lied not before his buddy there, the same one who's propping up the Justin Trudeau regime. Jagmeet Singh quote tweeted, "I'm proud of you, Joel Hardin, ONDP. Queer and trans people and kids are being targeted by angry and hateful extremists. Governments must step up to protect the queer and trans community." Notice the wording on this, by the way. It's deliberately opaque because he's not reaffirming John Hardin's lie, because now it's a proven, demonstrable lie. He's not reaffirming. He's not repeating the lie. He's just quote tweeting. He's proud of him. Okay, you could be proud of him even if he's a liar. Who knows? Maybe he's proud of Joel Hardin, because he's a liar. I'm proud of you, Joel, because you are willing to lie to the world to promote ideology. I'm proud of you. Do more of it. Everyone out there should lie for the sake of ideology. Maybe that's what he meant. And then he goes on to another detached statement. Queer and trans people and kids are being targeted by angry, hateful extremists. That's your opinion. It's not what we saw from that video anyhow. Government's best, yada, yada, yada. To which I tweeted, "Are you going to delete this tweet and issue a formal correction and apology, Jagmeet Singh? It looks like a member of your party lied about having been the victim of a hate crime. What else do you and your," I didn't say filthy lying party, but I'm thinking it. "What else do you and your party lie about?" And look at that, people. That's the little eyelet for the lanyard on the bullhorn, I think, hitting this man right in the face, where he had posted, "I got punched in the face by an angry far-right mob." All right. Cut and dry. In case it weren't cut and dry, however, he came out and posted an update. Joel Hardin, who said, "I was punched in the face." That angry far-right mob, they're not just hanging around on streets. They're punching people in the face. He posted an update. Joel Hardin. Can't believe he hasn't blocked me yet, but good for him. Ontario NDP MPP, member of provincial parliament. Update. Last Friday, I broke up several altercations or near altercations. What the hell is a near altercation? That got started by anti-trans protesters. Okay. In one of those occasions, a woman was grabbing another woman by the hair. I put my body between them and separated them. Such a hero. Even when he gets caught in a lie, he's still a hero. After separating them, I looked over my shoulder and was punched. I was holding a megaphone against my face. The blow glanced off the megaphone and my face was cut. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you got punched in the face, Joel. The woman left and the altercation ended. Do you think it's at all plausible that a woman would leave after physically assaulting a member of provincial parliament? People were arrested there. So a woman punches a member of parliament in the face and just walks off like that. The dude who threw gravel at Justin Trudeau was promptly identified and arrested. Cameras everywhere. You lied. I got punched in the face. Okay, I didn't get punched in the face. I got punched in the bullhorn. The bullhorn hit me in the face. And oh, hold on, because he's still a hero. I do not want this woman charged. I would rather talk to her about why she needed to be violent. Pathological narcissism. He's a hero. She's the aggressor. He's a perpetual victim. I want to talk to her about why she needed to be violent and why she needed to protest outside public schools. If she is reading this statement, that offer still holds. Please get in touch with me. I got caught in the lie. I'm sorry. I didn't get punched in the face. I got punched in the bullhorn. I'd like to. I don't want to arrest you. I'm so benevolent. I lie about a hate crime in order to start a war among factions. I want to talk to you. Offer still stands. And then what else was the latest development? What was it? Paul Champ, who's the lawyer from the convoy. Paul Champ puts out a tweet. Let me just bring this one up, and we're going to end it on this. Because, you know, everybody's got to come now to cover up their lie. Because there were a number of other people who promoted the lie. Not just Jagmeet Singh. Other people. The woman, someone tried to blame it on a woman holding a Bible. I didn't retweet that because I'm not interested in putting doxing someone or putting someone on blast who quite clearly did not do what was said that she had done in the first place. The woman with a blue Bible punched Joel in the face. Yeah, Joel wasn't really punched in the face. It was he was punched in the bullhorn. It was a glancing blow. And Paul Champ Law, Ottawa lawyer with national practice, employment, labor, and human rights. Him. Just in case you didn't know what his pronouns were based on that avatar. Just in case you didn't know, dude's got a 5 o'clock shadow, short hair, blue eyes, decent looking fellow. Him. Just in case, people. Although I think it's now just like a litmus test. If you don't do it, you'll get chewed up by your side. But set that aside. He's the lawyer, if I'm not mistaken, during the Ottawa convoy. Or the commission. He writes, words have meaning, by the way. This is what he tweeted. Video from another angle shows a protester strike the megaphone into his face. Too bad this video by Karima doesn't show the full view. At least he wasn't trampled to death by a horse, I guess. I don't know if he's minimizing the 80-some-odd-year-old Native woman who was trampled by an RCMP horse. Are you minimizing what happened to that 80-plus-year-old Native woman, Paul? It sounds like you are, if I'm not mistaken. It sounds like you might be minimizing grotesque police abuse on an Indigenous elderly woman. Very tolerant of you, young white man. Video from another angle suggests there's another video. But the video that too bad the video that Karima showed doesn't show the full. Hey, Paul, where the hell is that video? I'm not saying it doesn't exist. And then someone asks, Paul, where is that video? Link, please. To which Paul replies, someone else is getting caught in an unnecessary lie. Video from another angle means video from another angle exists. It means another video from another angle distinct from the one that we are looking at. His response to the woman asking for the receipts for the statement that he just made. This is a practicing attorney making a statement on Twitter, not in the practice of his practice, not in the context of his practice, but nonetheless a statement. He says, this guy says Hardin smacked himself, but the clip actually shows two protesters advancing on him, raising their arms. Hey, Paul, you know what question that doesn't answer? Where the hell is the video that you referenced? Where is it? And by the way, that video, for anybody who watched it, shows that the only person in front of Joel is his own posse of people wearing black clad, as far as I could see from that video. Where's the video, Paul? Oh, I'm sorry. The video that she showed. Where's the video, Paul? You made a statement. Bring the receipts. They're all going to start jumping ship like a bunch of rats that they are, because they got caught in a bold-faced lie. A bold-faced lie of the highest order. I say, and a lot of people say it, you lie about a hate crime, you lie about a sex crime, you lie about any crime, you should be susceptible of going to jail for as long as the punishment would have been for that crime. Putting it on blast, people, Joel Hardin is a liar. He got caught in a lie. He's trying to backpedal and make up another story. Paul Champ coming to his defense, the people who promoted the lie, covering their tracks primarily by blocking me. And Paul Champ says, there's another video from another angle. I'm just not showing it to you. It's mine. All right. Barnes is in the backdrop. Let me do a few things that I haven't done. Standard intro. No medical advice, no legal advice, no election fortification advice. These wonderful things called super chats on YouTube, Rumble rants on Rumble. YouTube takes 30% of these. If you want to support YouTube, you can go to Rumble, and they have the Rumble rants. Oh, cripe, I didn't set it up, so I don't know if any came in. There's a few. I'm going to see if I can backtrack and get all those. Rumble takes 0% of Rumble rants for the rest of the year. Ordinarily, they take 20%. So better for the platform, better for the creator. This flipping camera is getting on my nerves. What else? You may have noticed. Hold on one second. Cripe, did I do it? More. Okay, I'm clicking contains paid promotion. This contains a paid promotion. It's in the link. And the paid promotion, share screen. For those of you who have potentially unhealthy dietary habits, if you don't eat your fruits and vegetables, everybody knows you're supposed to. I'm going to, jokes aside, I use this product. Jokes aside, eating fruits and vegetables is a good, healthy thing to do. I feel gross when I don't do it. People are supposed to have 5 to 7 servings of raw fruits and vegetables daily. Most people do not have that. Sometimes when you're traveling, it's impossible to get it. So you might want to have a little container of Field of Greens, powdered, desiccated fruits and vegetables. Each spoonful contains 1 serving of fruits and vegetables, 2 spoonfuls a day. It tastes good. Will give you the antioxidants, the nutritional value, in as much as desiccated vegetables and fruits can do. It tastes good. It's made in America. It's USDA organic approved because it is not a supplement. It is not an extract. It is a food. It's like pulverized beef jerky of the fruits and vegetable nature. It's delicious. It's healthy. Everyone should do it. Fieldofgreens.com, promo code VIVA. You'll get 15% off your first order. The link is in the description. And thank Field of Greens for sponsoring the video. Now, let me just see if I can get a few here. Wearing my new Viva Fro t-shirt, I have a duty to support this channel. Yeah, duty, Cheryl Gage, thank you. Jordan Peterson, Biden was the return of normalcy candidate. We can't go back. The only way out is through. LOL, Viva, for the record, you just had an audio issue, thus the stream is complete before Barnes. Cripe. New slogan for the legacy media, from fact checks to fat checks. Not bad. So we are talking about Joel Hardin and is the video evidence. We're talking about Joel Hardin and the video evidence. We got it there. Thank you very much. And Viva FT Super Chat. What does that mean? Featuring Super Chatter. I heard you're back in Montreal. I'm a fan and would love if you came to my family's restaurant on Sherbrooke Street West, Café Il Cortil. We have a beautiful terrace. Screen grabbed, and you will be seeing me there sooner than later. Taffy 4. Okay. Barnes. Oh my goodness. He's looking dapper. To what do we owe this? In the house. Sir, how goes it?
Good.
Sorry about that lengthy intro. We have to break down in real time the lies before they delete them or block or, whatever. Robert, what's the book? Oh, The Snowden Reader. Is that about Snowden delicatessen on Dakari in Montreal? I'm joking. What's it about?
No, it's a good. It gets into the aspects of the Snowden debate, what Snowden disclosed, some of the key documents, some of the discussion about it, and it's pertinent to aspects of the some cases we'll be talking about tonight.
And cigar, what do you have there?
What is it? I think it's called Undercrown. It's a fun little cigar.
All right, Robert, look, I went a little long on the intro on YouTube. Let's do the first subject on YouTube, bring it all over to Rumble afterwards, but give us the breakdown of what's on. Everybody wants us to talk about the Trump indictment, and we shall. But that's going to be the teaser for everybody over on Rumble. What do we have on the menu?
So 12 topics plus a few bonus topics tonight that we may get to. The top topics are 4 different Supreme Court cases. One concerning voting rights, another concerning Jack Daniels, trademark parody law, identity theft, civil rights being enforceable in nursing home context. Then the big case that is on everybody's agenda, the Trump indictment, the various defenses that may be available to Trump. The Jeffrey Clark case, that's a case we've previously discussed. We did a sidebar with Jeff Clark. Travis Rudolph acquitted on self-defense grounds. New York City sues car makers for their problems of car theft in New York City. Cops win a big First Amendment case out of the Third Circuit. A big Second Amendment win for nonviolent felons, also in the Third Circuit. 2 different groups sue concerning censorship issues, the vaccine injured and election people challenging and questioning aspects of the 2020 election. There's a big lawsuit that the media is not talking about, which is reaching class action status, which is a lawsuit that claims Tylenol is responsible in part for autism's dramatic growth in the United States and the West. Then we have a couple of bonus cases. Beto dodges defamation by the same Austin court that had a real broad definition of defamation when it came to Alex Jones, magically shrinks that definition when it comes to Beto O'Rourke. And Dave Ramsey sued over timeshare-related issues.
All right, so we're going to start with the voting rights. This is the gerrymandering out of Mississippi lawsuit?
Alabama.
Alabama, sorry. Okay, Robert, I think we need to refresh some memory on this. What does gerrymandering mean in U.S. law?
Gerrymandering is just the means by which redistricting occurs. So just that, and some people call it gerrymandering when they don't like the particular way in which a district has been drawn. So for state state house, state senate, and the U.S. Congress, all of those are district based. And so the city council, county council, often those are district based. So somebody draws which neighborhoods are going to be part of that district that get to vote for the representative from that district, whether it's at the congressional level in the House or the legislative level at the state or the local level at the city or county level. And so that's all that districting is. And redistricting occurs after every census every 10 years.
So redistricting every 10 years. Census goes out, it says how many, what the population is, what the race. I mean, what's on the census? Race, ethnicity, other identifiers.
A bunch of that stuff. I mean, mostly it's supposed to be for population purposes, but increasingly it's also used for because of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the degree to which it is enforcing the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, one of the Reconstruction amendments. Race has become increasingly a factor as well.
All right. And so now bringing it to, so every 10 years, meaning the census is every 10 years. And after the census, depending on whether or not there's been, demographic shifts, population growth, is it supposed to go by population?
They redistrict automatically. The idea is that there may be population shifts that require changes in the districts, but that's not the sole premise for it. They just, as a matter of custom and habit, and often by law, redistrict after every census is done to make sure it's proportionate population-wise.
How wild can the redistricting be? Is it starting like tabula rasa, or does it work within what had been the previous districting?
It depends on each area. So these days, sometimes the legislative branch of a government does the districting. Sometimes there's a special independent commission that does the districting. Sometimes there's a governor involved in the signing off on the districting. Sometimes you have courts involved in the districting, state courts in some cases, federal courts in other cases. And so there tends to be a lot of participants in that process these days.
All right. So in Alabama, you have a Republican-led legislature, which had done the redistricting, what some are calling gerrymandering. Sorry, I spat on my computer. What some are calling gerrymandering. It was contested along the racial split, went to the Supreme Court, 5-4. Supreme Court says the way you redistricted is invalid. Send it back and do it again.
Effectively, yes. But it's more consequential how they got there. And the decision effectively is a 3-2-4 decision. So what that means is you don't have a controlling, clear decision. You have a concurring decision that you can call controlling, but it's not exactly because Kavanaugh's concurrence was written by himself. So you had Roberts who wrote the opinion, except not one section of the opinion. In that one section of the opinion, he didn't join, but he didn't join either one of the concurrences or dissents either. So we have no idea what he meant, what his thought process is. Then you have Kavanaugh who writes, so you only have 3 judges who join one part of the decision. Kavanaugh writes a concurrence about that provision. And then you have 4 judges who dissented, who said this was a misapplication, because the fundamental issue was the state of Alabama was saying that at this stage, the Voting Rights Act to be constitutional under the 15th Amendment, which 15th Amendment prohibits taking race into consideration. It says that your right to vote will not be abridged based on race. The Voting Rights Act has been interpreted to go far beyond that and effectively empower people based on race, to say that if a minority is being denied equal voting power of the majority, which often is just based on voting patterns, in other words, the majority votes one way and the minority votes another way, that's being interpreted as the minority is somehow being denied their vote, which has never made any sense to me. But effectively, that's what's happening. And so the Alabama said, using these race standards to draw districts is a violation of the 15th Amendment. And the U.S. four dissenting justices, Thomas and the lead, would have said they agreed. But Kavanaugh and Roberts refused to go along with that. And instead, Kavanaugh and Roberts said that essentially what you have is it just comes down to Kavanaugh's concurrence, which is this goes back to after the Voting Rights Act was passed. Now, the reason why the Voting Rights Act has to exist is because from beginning in it depends on where you time it. Some states, the 1860s, other states, not until the late 1890s. What the Southern planter class did is restore its political power after the end of the Civil War. The Civil War being, you can watch the Hush Hush at vivabarneslaw.locals.com for some alternative hypotheses about the Civil War. While I was born and raised in Tennessee, Southeast Tennessee, Chattanooga, my family is all New Englanders and Rhode Islanders on my father's side. So my ancestors fought wearing the Union side of the war. In fact, I don't think any ancestor of mine has fought in a losing war since my great ancestor, Reverend Robert Barnes, got hung up in the tower for telling the king to shove off. So otherwise, we tend to be, back-to-back World War champs. The Revolutionary War, Civil War, some other ones. We've been on the right side. But basically, the planter class lost. They reestablished their power, aligning with the merchant, railroad, and industrial and banker class after the Civil War. By the 1880s, 1876 famous compromise, where that was the first stolen election that kind of occurred in America. Not to say there was another one now. We're still on YouTube. Well, no, I guess we can say that now. YouTube now allows us to say it. Well, I guess we'll get to test it in live time. So the election fornication that occurred in 2020 was like the one that occurred in 1876. And what they did is the elites, the Bourbons as they were called, a terrible name disgracing the legacy of the great bourbon of bourbon whiskey, bourbon scotch, depending on how you call it, was the disfranchisement of pretty much all poor whites in most of the South and all black voters. And so by for about 60, 70 years, for example, in Mississippi, as an example, in 1900, they had fewer voters in the presidential election than they did in 1860. All right. That wasn't because black voter, and while the white population had doubled in that time frame. So what they had done is they didn't just disfranchise black voters. They disfranchised poor and working class white voters. That's what the Southern elite class did. So Voting Rights Act was meant to remedy that and justifiably wanted to be aggressive in its enforcement, and it used the 15th Amendment as its constitutional predicate. So, because this is otherwise an issue left to the states to almost have exclusive carte blanche power, a non-reviewable power, arguably, from the inception that the legislative branch was intended to have. Though there's some risk in that because legislative branch is, drawing its own districts too. So you worry a little bit about how that's going to work from a democratic perspective, democratic perspective. So the Voting Rights Act goes in force. It's meant to be real strong. We got to break the back of the old South that's keeping black voters off the voting rolls. By about 1975, but definitely by 1985, thanks to Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign, the old vestiges of the 1965 South were gone. Black voters were heavily registered, in some places more likely to be registered than white voters, more likely to vote and participate than white voters in some areas, and so forth. That happened in 2012 in the presidential election, including in places like the Deep South. So given that, and then in the early 1990s, you had this compromise between Republicans and race-minded Democrats. And the goal was this: we're going to stack and pack black voters into certain districts to create majority-minority districts. So the black population could have their own black members of Congress. But what did this do? It diluted the base of the populist Democratic vote in the South. Because now, rather than having 25-30% of your congressional district be black, and then you could combine it with working class whites to have a populist Democrat majority, now all of a sudden you are either in an all-white district or an almost all-black district. And that meant only black voters would get elected. So the progressive left of the urban Northeast benefited because the black politicians from the Deep South aligned with them, not with their populist brethren. And all the white voters started voting Republican, and the net effect of it was the working class, old school white populist Democrat vanished and disappeared from the South. And that would reach its final culmination in 2010, when rebellion against Obama led the last of the working class white South to say bye-bye to the Democratic Party, the original foundation of the Democratic Party from eastern Oklahoma all the way up through Appalachia up north. So Alabama starts drawing districts. Now, one dispute that comes up in the 90s is, does the Voting Rights Act require proportional representation? So if there's 20% of the population is black, 20% of the House seats have to be black, 20% of the state legislative seats have to be black, so on and so forth. The Supreme Court suggested maybe in a controversial 1986 decision. Congress came in and revised it and said, no, we don't look at effects, and no proportionality is not allowed or authorized or the direction.
Proportionality of outcome, not about access to voting.
Correct. Exactly. Okay. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court just reversed that, despite the legislature's clear demands, because Roberts and Kavanaugh want to be toasted in the Georgetown crowd and when they're up in the Hamptons this summer. And, oh, yes, we don't like those Alabama racists. Yes. It's that kind of crowd that they're with. And again, this has always been a alignment politically of the Northeastern liberal elites with black activists in the South that would sacrifice their populist interest of their own voters to have just a little power. Say, look at me, I'm Congressman James Clyburn. I elect presidents. Cares more about that than he does his own black community and constituency, in my humble opinion. But so this has often been about breaking the back of populist alliances, which goes all the way back to the late 1890s when there was a populist alliance between black voters and working class whites, especially in the South. That was the whole goal of breaking it up in from the get-go. So what the Kavanaugh says is just don't worry. Even though it's obvious what they're requiring is basically Alabama has almost 40% black population, so they want two seats, not one seat. And the Supreme Court says we agree. And the key to the Kavanaugh concurrence is, okay, yeah, even though it looks like we're directly violating state law that says don't have racial proportionality be the guide, and even though that looks like you're actually abridging the vote based on race in violation of the 15th Amendment, as the state of Alabama argued, don't worry, we're really not, because this only applies in cases of where the racial vote is geographically compact. So what this means is there's been a lot of interpretation of this case that goes way beyond what the case actually stands for. Unless you have this will only apply to the Black Belt in the South and maybe a little bit the Mexican-American West Texas, because those are two of the only places where you have true geographical compactness of race. And a lot of other places you don't. And so the net effect of it will not have the degree of impact that a lot of people thought it would, the media ran with. It will mostly impact the Deep South, and it will see how it shakes out. But it could end up hurting the Democratic Party, because by evenly dispersing the black vote, they increase the chance of Democrats in every single district, particularly populist Democrats. By now concentrating that black vote, they are increasing the chance that they have no chance at all in many of these other districts. Because
operating on the theory that the black vote is 85+% voting Democrat regardless, so concentrate them in one district, and then other districts.
And that's the other key, is that needs to stay that way for this to be effective. And anyone who knows the history knows that things can change and turn on a dime. So take the Mexican American vote as an example. In 2016, even through 2018, you had about 40 to 50 years in places like Zapata County, named after Emiliano Zapata, the great Mexican revolutionary, said I either he or Pancho Villa was the one I'd rather live on my knee. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. Had been one of the most heavily Democratic counties in the country. So, consistent Democrats were dependent on it. Well, in 2020, Zapata County voted for Donald El Jefe Trump, president of the United States. So anybody that assumed, and then same with black vote. Black vote was a loyal Republican vote for rather obvious reasons from 1866 until 1966. And then within one election cycle, it went from being a 90% Republican vote to a 90% Democratic vote. So the assumption that these votes will always stay this way is also an unreliable assumption over time.
Robert, what was the historical explanation for that? I know there's one president who infamously said behind closed doors, I'll have fill in the racial expletive.
Barry Goldwater decided to oppose the Civil Rights Act in 1964, and LBJ supported it, and that flipped the black vote. Okay.
Fascinating. That's one healthy dose of history for those who may not have appreciated it. And so what, I mean, so practically speaking, what happens now? What does Alabama do?
They go back and redraw that district to include a second black district in Alabama.
Okay.
So but I think that'll be, there was predictions by the Cook Political Report that's notorious for getting things wrong at predicting elections. They were predicting all these seats would flip. No, that's not what will happen. What most likely will happen is you'll have one or two added black seats in the Black Belt in the South. And that will probably be about all that happens. And then the other seats will become even more Republican and less competitive because of that.
All right. Predictions.
That's what happened. That's what some of us opposed this deal back in the early 90s that were on the populist Democratic side back then that said this will kill the populist Democratic base, which is what happened. And so the net effect has been to increase Republican it increases minority representation at the expense of Democrats overall and white Democrats in particular, because it increases Republican representation as well. It's why Republicans cut the deal in the mid-90s anyway.
All right, I'm just telling someone to ignore the trolls in the YouTube chat and the Rumble chat because they feed off energy. And I'm not always good at ignoring the trolls, but I don't always have to practice what I preach. Robert, do we do the Jack Daniels case here? It's a relatively quick one, and then we're going to head over to Rumble.
Sounds
Everybody,
good.
Let me just bring up an image, because an image is worth 1,000 words. We talked about this one well in the past. I think I agree with it. I mean, it's easy to say when you agree with a unanimous Supreme Court decision. This is the object of the trademark dispute between Jack Daniels, Tennessee Whiskey, and Bad Spaniels, #2, Tennessee Carpet. And it was a trademark infringement, intellectual property lawsuit dispute where Jack Daniels said they're basically reproducing our mark without our authorization, susceptible of confusion, sued for trademark violation. Unanimous, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. I mean, the Ninth Circuit initially said that the First Amendment allowed them to do it because parity protection requires superior protection over a trademark. And the U.S. Supreme Court said First Amendment protection only applies when you're not going right at the core of trademark, when you're not trying to designate the source by the style of which you've made a mark. So in essence, that you can do all the parody you want if people know for sure it's parody, in the sense that they know you're not trying to source, you're not trying to say this is a Jack Daniels product, which was the problem.
That was, and I'll just take one article here. It says she observed registration of a trademark allows the trademark user to sue when others use the mark for their own purposes. And then the question in this case was, sure, it's a parody, it's making fun of it, but when someone buys that, do they think that that is a Jack Daniels dog toy? And is there enough, reasonable confusion? And I could totally understand it in that one could easily think that that's a Jack Daniels product, or that they have authorization and you're somehow parasitically siphoning off the goodwill of Jack Daniels based on the unauthorized use of the mark, because it's virtually identical. And some people are not going to know it's a different company making money off of parody use or just reproduction of Jack Daniels trademark. So no, other than overturning the Court of Appeal, no radical, earth-shattering new law coming out of that decision.
No.
All right.
mean, beyond that, the First Amendment doesn't apply when what you're doing goes to trademark, because then you're not doing it for speech, you're doing it for using a trademark. And that's the point they made, was that the First Amendment analysis only happens next. If you're not using it for trademark, then there's a First Amendment protection against the misapplication of trademark law. But when you're trying to, at core, people could believe that Jack Daniels had created a fake parody of itself. And that was the problem.
And also it goes to the question, it goes to the issue of people think free speech means everything, but it doesn't allow you to use your First Amendment rights to threaten people, because you're not using it for using it, you're using it to actually threaten, harass, defame, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, this is that logic mutatis mutandis to trademark infringement. Everybody, same thing would apply to copyright infringement, I presume. Let us share the Rumble link one more time. Head on over to Rumble. We have now currently 13,677 people on Rumble. And for those who are watching this, and I didn't set out the pattern as we start on Rumble and YouTube because of my exclusivity, which I love with Rumble. We end on YouTube after a given point in time, bring it over to Rumble, where we're also streaming on locals. And at the end, we end on Rumble. We go to locals. We have our private community there, although it's open to everybody. And we take the tips in locals and chat with our locals community, who are slightly and well above average. So ending it on YouTube right now, moving over to Rumble. The link is in the pinned comment. And let me see, removing 3, 2, 1.